Welcome to day 5 of our Perimenopause Unpacked series. It seems like it's gone by quite quickly, but so thankful for everyone who's kind of stayed with us looking through like the basics of perimenopause and how we can kind of work to thrive in this time of our lives. Hopefully, you've left with a few tidbits that you didn't know before and can start to implement. For those of you who don't know me, maybe this is the first time you're listening to me. My name is Kelly Vita, and I own Empower Her Fitness in Batavia. We are a yoga and wellness studio focused on some of the key stages of a woman's life, perimenopause being one, with regards to various classes and workshops that we do, so that ultimately we can empower you to kind of move through this time with ease and grace, hopefully some joy, and most importantly, compassion. Okay, so we again have a jam-packed agenda. Rather than giving you a link out to like share this with your friends, I wanted to leave you with the YouTube link. So all of these are posted on YouTube. Again, if you need to go back and rewatch anything, of course, you can always go and view that at your leisure. As we've done for all 5 days now, we'll start with some ground rules. Hopefully, because of the repetition, these just are kind of foundational for you now. But as we go through all of the different things that surround perimenopause and how your body is responding to the hormonal imbalances and ultimately things that you can do to counteract those imbalances, I hope that you at least try one new thing, maybe not try to do too many things at once to where it's unsustainable and inconsistent, but pick the things that you enjoy doing that are easy for you and that you can continue to do outside of just these 5 days that we've been together. As always, speak kindly to yourself. You are the most consistent voice that you hear, and so we want to make sure that those thoughts and what you're hearing is positive rather than on the negative side, because all of that sticks with you and can either help you thrive or kind of put you in survival mode or worse. Making sure that you prioritize sleep and rest. We talked a lot about sleep yesterday and the importance of it for just your hormonal balance and everything that kind of trickles down from that. But then also finding those periods throughout the day where you can rest your mind and your body, so that you're not pushing it too hard, keeping your cortisol levels high, and ultimately finding some balance and some peace in your body. Finding movement that you enjoy, doing it daily, whether it's a walk, riding on your Peloton, or just things around the house that either help you to clean your house or bring you joy, so that you are lubricating all of your joints. You're also working to kind of keep yourself moving, but also thriving again in this period of your life. Lean into those that, in your community who get it. I know I've said it quite a few times now, but chances are you have friends or relatives that you look to talk to about this type of stuff, but they just don't get it. And sometimes that can feel very isolating. Some people may be going through perimenopause with very minimal symptoms. And so it's hard to, maybe talk about where you're struggling. So find your community, those that get it, where you feel like you belong and also don't feel like you are alone. And then remember your why. We set that on the first day. What is important to you, and what is going to kind of lean into what's important to you by making these small changes. I've shared mine before, but just to reiterate it, I have 2 young children, and I want to make sure that as I grow and I age, I am there physically and mentally for them, so that I'm present in every way that they need me to be. All right. Now, we have quite a few topics today, and the foundations that we start with, nutrition, movement, sleep, and stress, those fit in nice little buckets. And then there's all these other little things that we need to talk about, but don't necessarily fit into one of those 4 pillars. So we'll talk about mental health, pelvic floor health, and then some other things. So let's dive into mental health. And mental health, especially during perimenopause, it's going far beyond what we talked about yesterday in terms of just like the stressors in your life. And so that's why I want to make sure that we are giving it its own thoughtful lens, and talking about what that can look like, what that could mean for you. It really framing it around emotional or cognitive changes, just feeling different mentally. Many women experience that, or maybe they experience things like identity transitions and, just trying to figure out who you are in this new stage of your life, kind of processing all of the emotions that come with that. If you're kind of leaving your old life behind, how does that make you feel emotionally, especially as you move forward into like this new normal? So, with that, we'll talk about the emotional landscape of perimenopause. Perimenopause is not just a physical transition, it's a deep emotional, psychological one. Many of you have probably already, been experiencing this. But as we've talked about multiple times this week, estrogen and progesterone, they are dropping, maybe just fluctuating, and things are all over the place. Other hormones like serotonin kind of follow that fluctuation. And all of that's kind of lending itself for shifts in mood, memory, confidence, inner identity. You're rewiring all of that electrical impulse inside of your mind. It's not unraveling, but it's just finding new paths. And so we want to more or less attack it in that way. So, some just common mental or emotional experiences that you may have in perimenopause is around mood swings or just emotional sensitivity that feel a little bit unfamiliar or unpredictable. Maybe you are grieving the loss of your old life, or you're feeling a little bit more nostalgic for the way things used to be. Think about what happens to a lot of us during this time. Kids are going off to college or they're moving out, kind of starting their new life on their own. And sometimes that can just be amplified because of the other perimenopause hormonal impacts, as well as neurological. Brain fog or memory loss, memory lapses. That can ultimately impact how confident we move forward in terms of maybe our work or just like our personal lives. Maybe we have that irritability, just our tolerance is very low. We seem to fly off the handle much quicker than we used to. And sometimes it's not for any one trigger, it's just something happens and everything kind of frustrates us from that point on. There's maybe a desire for solitude or just being by yourself so that you can reflect, have some self-reflection. This may even tune itself into a redefinition of relationships or roles that you have with your friends, your family. I once had a conversation with a local pelvic floor therapist who I actually absolutely adore. And she said one of the things that she asks all of her clients in this stage of life is, do you find yourself just sitting in your car, not wanting to go into the house? Whether you're in your driveway or in your garage, you just are like holding on to every moment of me time that you have. And that kind of plays into just this desire to be alone for a couple of minutes. And then a sense of disconnection, whether this is from maybe your former self or your former body, especially as we think about some of the physical changes that happen. Maybe this disconnection is also a very social one. You just don't feel as close to your friends or your family. Like we said, maybe you feel isolated because of what you're going through and it being very different from their own experiences. So that's really why I talk about plugging into a community where you can be yourself and really feel like you thrive. All right. Now, mental health during perimenopause goes far beyond stress and like I said, it deserves its own thoughtful lens. If you feel like you are struggling with a lot of these more emotional pieces of perimenopause, there may be a point in which you just need to talk to someone who is focused in this, especially in the lens of a therapist. So if you ever need a recommendation, always happy to provide that for you, because it is so very important that we make sure that we listen to what's happening in our bodies. So we've talked about that all week, but especially in this area where depression can set in, or that feeling of isolation, that's really when we want to plug in and find professional help as we need it. Okay. Now, as we think about some supportive practices to help build our emotional resilience, we want to really think about perimenopause and reframe it to not being the end of vitality or our old self, but rather the beginning of a more rooted, intuitive, and powerful person, and just powerful phase of our life. So, in a few ways we can go about that, one being normalizing this shift. So, just understanding that mood changes, they're often rooted in hormonal and neurochemical fluctuations and imbalances. So, with that being said, it's nothing that you're doing wrong. So, remove any self-blame that maybe you've put on yourself. Again, turning more to that compassionate side, giving yourself that realization that you are doing your best, and some days that is enough. Also, just know that you are not overreacting. Your brain is adjusting. People around you may think that you're overreacting or tell you that you're overreacting, but in no ways should you put that on yourself. It really is something that's happening in your body, causing some of these nuances or differences that just can't be tied to any one specific reason. We've talked about the self-compassion, and we really want to make sure that we are deepening that, especially during this time. So speak to yourself like you would speak to a friend, like you would speak to your sister, to your daughter. And then allow yourself to just embrace this change. Maybe that is practice telling yourself that I am allowed to feel this, I am allowed to change. There is nothing wrong with me. This is, my time to really thrive. Again, I had mentioned before, but therapy and support groups may be the right move for you as you look to plug into someone who's trained in this specific period of someone's life, understanding how they can help you process emotions, maybe loss, maybe that change of identity. And then there are some peer support groups in the area where you can just find those women who understand what you're going through and maybe bring a different perspective and their own lens to it. You may want to plug into something new that you really haven't had the time or the chance to do before. That really helps to stimulate both your mind and your creative side. So that could be as easy as reading or learning something new, learning a new language, painting, writing, engaging in something that just helps you have an outlet, but also counteract brain fog. Maybe it helps to enhance your mood via like dopamine rush or just mental engagement. I know a lot of women that I work with kind of turn to those adult coloring books, which, that may be like, oh, I haven't colored in, 40 plus years, but it allows yourself to just kind of decompress and find like that creativity. I personally love to puzzle because like I can't think of anything other than like the next piece. And it really helps me kind of unload some of that mental stimulation and overload. We've talked about hormonal support in terms of like hormone replacement therapy or that bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, finding some natural supplements that we've talked about just to help you stabilize your moods if your hormones are causing significant shifts and you want to feel more balanced. Of course, as I've mentioned, with all of these, make sure that you're working with a knowledgeable practitioner or your healthcare provider before just jumping in and trying something without their guidance, especially as you think about maybe some of the other medications that you're using and how those could all interact with each other. I made sure that we stayed or that we spent quite a bit of time on sleep hygiene and that circadian rhythm of the sun rising and you feeling awake and alert, and then the sun setting and you feeling more drowsy and ready to go to bed. Obviously, as we mentioned, fluctuating hormones can disrupt that, which ultimately can play into disrupted sleep. And we all know that a few nights without good quality sleep can really impact our mental health. So that's why this is so important. Make sure that you build that sleep routine before you go to bed and keep those consistent sleep and wake times. Reduce blue light where you can. I have my glasses on again. And then find something that is non-stimulating before you go to bed in terms of maybe an herbal tea or a hot bath or doing some gentle stretching and reading rather than, watching like a stressful show or an energetic movie, something like that. And then identify integration practices, especially as it relates to like journaling. So journaling on topics like who am I or who am I becoming? What does that look like? Or, what does that woman in bloom looks like? We've talked about this time as our opportunity to really bloom into the woman that we're becoming. And then how can we support that sense of evolution and, really becoming rather than declining and losing the sense of who we are or who we were? Vision boards can also be a great way for us to kind of put into perspective what's important for us. And so as we evolve, we really lean into the things that give us life and give us joy and focus there when other things really feel to be uncertain or no longer serving us. And then, of course, as we think about the nutrition aspect, it's so healthy. It's so important that we eat for our health, especially in maybe some of the ways that we eat fat, because remember, your brain needs fat to survive and to thrive. And so making sure that we're eating healthy fats or, supplementing with omega-3s, DHA, EPA, or fish oil to support that brain function, mood regulation. And then other nutrition in terms of maybe even what we eat, or again, supplementation, B vitamins, magnesium, protein-rich meals. All of these are going to be nourishing to our brain and to our neurotransmitters, especially important as we grow older. And then mental health is not about staying the same. It's really just about holding that space for who you're becoming and finding joy and compassion and happiness in that. Now we'll kind of switch from our brain down to our pelvic floor. And the pelvic floor is so very important to talk about because it is something that maybe we don't think about often until it becomes a problem. And we can be doing so much just in terms of our daily living that helps to strengthen our pelvic floor so it never really becomes a problem. If you've never seen an infographic of the pelvic floor, this is what it looks like. It is that group of muscles and ligaments and connective tissues. You can see that it's connecting to itself, to bones, so to like your tailbone, to your pubic bone, to your hip bones. And all of this is providing that base of your pelvis. So it's like a supportive sling holding up your organs, your bladder in front, your uterus, if you have it, in the middle, and then your rectum in the back. And these muscles all work together. They're all kind of going in different ways and work together nicely so that you have bladder and bowel control. You don't have incontinence, either urinary or fecal incontinence, which also happens when like those sphincters become a little bit more lax and allow those various uh, excretions to come out. And then organ support. Not surprising, it is keeping our pelvic organs in the right place. So, if you've ever had a hysterectomy, the rectum and the bladder may have a little bit different relationship because you no longer have your uterus in the middle to like prop them up. But with all that being said, as we grow older, and especially in perimenopause, where our estrogen dips, we can start to lose like the buoyancy or the flexibility of these muscles and find that we are now suffering from prolapse. So something like the feeling of a tampon that's stuck and it's not great. And oftentimes it's something that you need to seek help for because it's more than just discomfort. It can have some other negative implications. Sexual function is highly tied to the strength of your pelvic floor. So as we think about arousal and orgasm, tighter, not necessarily a too tight pelvic floor, but a nice balanced pelvic floor that can contract and relax is going to really play a major role in the specifics around arousal and orgasm. And so that's why oftentimes in perimenopause, we have reduced sexual sensation or even comfort because those muscles aren't as strong as they once were. Again, kind of playing into the hormone fluctuations and reduction of estrogen. And then core stability. So you can imagine that it is holding like our front and our back together and our sides together, and all of that is keeping us stable. So it is going to work right in conjunction with our abdominal and our back muscles for both posture and movement. And so quite often I will work with women who just have terrible, terrible back pain that they have just lived with and maybe have like done yoga or massages, but nothing ever really gets to the root cause of it. And I will say, you need to see a pelvic floor therapist. And it is maybe so not the norm, but most times they find almost immediate comfort from that back pain because there was something in imbalance in their pelvic floor that was ultimately causing the other pieces of our body to not work in its optimal form and fashion. And then if we think about how perimenopause affects the pelvic floor, we've already talked about like the reduced sexual sensation or comfort, but also, important to call out that estrogen is keeping these tissues elastic and strong, well lubricated. And when that drops, that's going to weaken the muscles and the tissues in the pelvic floor. We potentially will have vaginal dryness, making just the tissues more prone to injury. That can all tie back to, reduced sexual sensation and comfort. You may find that you have an increased risk of incontinence, whether it's something that's happening overnight or when you jump, or just like you feel like you can't make it to the bathroom. All of that I would kind of put in the bucket of incontinence. And then with everything that we've said, higher chance of pelvic organ prolapse. Those organs more or less coming through one of the holes that we have. Okay, well, the great thing is that we can do something about it. And I love that perimenopause and incontinence is kind of out there in the public medium. But I don't love how it's being framed or talked about or kind of addressed. And in that way, I'm talking about the commercials that are like, hey, you have incontinence now. Just wear a special pad and that'll catch, the leaking so you can run and jump and do everything you want to do with your kids. It's like, well, we could also do something about it so that, we're rebuilding these pelvic floor muscles or we're counteracting everything that's happening as we enter perimenopause so that we don't have to wear a pad or, we don't just have to live with it or deal with it or suck it up for the next, X amount of years. So, with that being said, it's more than just incontinence. We've already talked about that. We can't just slap a band-aid or wear a pad and fix pelvic organ prolapse or the sexual discomfort. We may need to really address the problem. And so, a few things that we can do there is lifestyle adjustments. We've been talking about this all week, maintaining a healthy weight so that we're minimizing the pressure down on our pelvic floor, avoid chronic straining. And so, even like when we get up from a laying down position, sometimes we are just increasing the intra-abdominal pressure, and that is most likely going to go down on our pelvic floor. So if you've ever thought of going like, or like holding your breath and like trying to lift something heavy, that is adding that intra-abdominal pressure, potentially chronic straining, and actually doing more harm to our pelvic floor than good. So I always say like lift on the exhale, or use your breath as you move throughout a workout or like your normal day. Before you sneeze, maybe like lift your pelvic floor, so all that pressure doesn't just like barrel down on it. So that is kind of chronic straining in that sense, but I also want you to think about chronic straining on the toilet. So if you have constipation or you are just sitting on the toilet for a long time, we want to make sure that you understand that all of that is straining on your pelvic floor. It naturally relaxes on the toilet. So that's a good thing to help us go to the bathroom. But if we're sitting there for long periods of time, maybe on our phone, that is just unnecessary relaxing. So I would more or less caution you in doing that. And then if you do have to strain during a bowel movement, think about maybe increasing your fiber or some other lifestyle adjustment so that you don't have that constant strain through bowel movements. And then stay active with core focused exercises. Pilates is great. Yoga has a lot of great strengthening moves. If you need some specific to you, those pelvic floor therapists can give you what is appropriate for you and your needs, especially where you are with your pelvic floor health. I will say that I have seen a couple therapists who I absolutely love, and there's usually like a disbalance, or an imbalance, and it's like the right side's a little bit stronger than your left side. So here are the exercises that I recommend for you to help re-strengthen your left side and come back into balance. So that's why I like to, again, plug the therapist who can give very prescriptive uh, insights into what you need to do for where you are. And then avoid high impact exercises, especially if you're symptomatic. And so that is like if you're peeing yourself while running or jumping, doing like a burpee, avoid doing that until you can re-strengthen. That's not to say that you can never run or do like a burpee again, but you may have to see a pelvic floor therapist, but also switch to some low impact workouts, at least for the time being, like swimming or walking, so that you're not more or less, hurting any progress that you would be doing through therapy or through other exercises like Kegels or other pelvic floor exercises that strengthen the pelvic floor muscles. So this is something that you can do regularly, but I would recommend that you do it with your breath. So rather than just like sitting, and like lifting your pelvic floor 10 times, I would inhale and allow all of your core to expand. So your upper back muscles, your abdominal muscles, your rib cage, your pelvic floor, almost like a balloon is being inflated inside of your core. And then as you exhale, breathe out almost like you're breathing out of a straw. And then lift your pelvic floor almost like you're trying to stop the flow of urine. So those are the types of exercises that I do with my students so that you're working with your breath. That also is nice muscle memory so that as you exhale, you lift the pelvic floor. So think about lifting something heavy, exhaling, your pelvic floor is kind of automatically doing the lifting because that's how it's been trained. So just some thoughts around the pelvic floor exercise. It's also great to understand how to do a Kegel because, like I said, when you cough or sneeze or laugh and you feel that incontinence, that may be something that you can incorporate right before you do those exercises or the act of sneezing, coughing, laughing, so that you're kind of holding your pelvic floor strong as the pressure comes down on it.
I did.
Um, and then let's see. Hydration and fiber comes back into the role that your pelvic floor plays in supporting bowel movements. So this is going to help you be a little bit more regular or help to prevent straining that can also ultimately worsen the pelvic floor tissues. And then pelvic floor therapy, I've talked about it quite a bit, but really seeing someone specialized in pelvic floor can help you to understand where you are and assess what needs to be done to help you get a really tailored plan to strengthen or relax your muscles as needed. Having really tight pelvic floor muscles is also not ideal. So we want to make sure that they are nice and balanced and equal side to side, front to back. A pelvic floor therapist or a doctor might also recommend some topical estrogen, something that you can utilize inside. This oftentimes is recommended for women who can't take it orally. This is completely outside of my scope of work, but if you need to restore vaginal um, and tissue health, maybe improve muscle tone and reduce some of like the dryness or other symptoms of decrease in estrogen, you may be prescribed topical estrogen, either in a cream or even like a ring. And then I want to just talk about what you've been looking at on this slide for this whole conversation. These are pessaries. So pessaries are small, removable devices. Maybe they don't look so small there, but they are small and they are inserted into the vagina to help support pelvic organs. So if you are struggling with, symptoms of prolapse, whether that be bladder, uterus, or rectum, these different types of pessaries would be used based on what you need or the symptoms that you're having. So it helps to provide mechanical support to either prevent or reduce those prolapse symptoms. That may be just downward pressure or actual bulging, something actually coming out of one of your holes. It can help to reduce some of the incontinence issues that you may have. It can also help with just the symptoms that you're having of perimenopause without needing to have like a mesh put in. So this is like a nice non-surgical option. And then because it is so little and it can be placed in and removed, this might be great for you if you want to continue doing some exercises, but you keep having that incontinence issue. It's great for potentially using during exercise or daily activity, just so that you're preventing at least the worsening of some of the symptoms like incontinence and prolapse. As you can see, they come in different shapes and sizes. This is really something that I would recommend you talk to a healthcare provider with specific, knowledge of pessaries so that they can get you the right one with custom fits and also teach you how to insert and remove it. And then the last thing that I'll say is sometimes, or some of these are suitable for long-term use. Just making sure that you're focused on following up with your healthcare provider and making sure that you're staying hygienic in terms of how they're being used. Okay, so that all goes to say, like, this is outside of my scope of expertise or even a scope of practice, but a great time for you to talk to your healthcare professional or find a pelvic floor therapist in your area that you can have these conversations with. All right. So now let's talk about self-care and what that means in perimenopause. Self-care is allowing yourself to take those moments of rest and recovery to turn into something that brings you joy and helps you to decompress just from the stresses of life, but then everything else that is just naturally occurring in your body. So we'll probably run through these pretty quickly, but I'll try to touch on the whys of each. So acupuncture, this can help to balance hormones and reduce hot flashes, anxiety, sleep disturbances. I've worked with a few acupuncturists who work specifically on like frozen shoulders with their clients. So if you're feeling some of these negative impacts of hormone imbalance, acupuncture might be a great thing to turn to. Uh, Lymphatic massage. If you've never had a massage, it's really quite gentle, I would say, but it is also referred to as like lymphatic drainage massage. And that's because it's encouraging the drainage of lymph fluids around the body. And it can help with symptoms maybe that people would feel if they had lymphedema or fibromyalgia or some other condition similar to that. And that is really the fluid in the lymphatic system helping to remove waste and toxins from your body and your body tissues. Just some of those health conditions, like I mentioned, may be caused by this lymph fluid building up. So it's stimulating that flow, it's reducing water retention, potentially boosting detoxification. Understanding though that you might not be able to see someone for massage, either based on your schedule or based on just the financial aspect of it. So there are some things that you can do at home that kind of do similar things. Dry brushing being one. We had talked about this before we hopped on yesterday. Just having it kind of looks like a horse brush to me. Sorry, it's in my other room. I don't have it. But it helps to exfoliate the skin and stimulate that lymphatic flow and circulation. So it's just a natural bristle brush that you use on dry skin before showering, and you brush in long strokes up towards the heart. So kind of everything would be coming up. I just kind of like scrub down as I come to my upper body. But dry brushing is great. Fascia scrubbing is great. This is also myofascial release potentially. You may have seen like Ashley Black, like little fascia scrubbers. They look kind of like torture devices, but you just kind of like rub it on your skin in some ways. This may also be like rolling with a ball or foam rolling. But this is great because it reduces or releases some of that like tight tissue tension or like tight muscles, helps to improve circulation. Sometimes you'll see it in terms of like what it can do for I'm not thinking of it. Sorry. But any like skin differences that are usually found like on your lower legs. Gua sha is another thing. This is usually more thought about for your face. It's like a hard, usually like a ceramic tool, or maybe even looks like a glass tool, and you just kind of will do it in different strokes, either on your body or on your face. And this moves any stagnant lymph and energy, kind of, again, out of the body, helping to relieve tension, support skin elasticity, and gently scraped over the face or the body in an upward stroke, kind of similar to dry brushing. Castor oil packs, we talked about these just a little bit yesterday again before we hopped on, but I love castor oil packs. And that's because castor oil is great for promoting detoxification and promoting blood flow and that flow of the lymph fluid. And it's all just increased through the use of castor oil. It all kind of goes to the area where the castor oil is put. So with that being said, I put my castor oil pack over my liver, and that's supposed to help with detoxification and to help reduce things like inflammation and help, just with my overall liver function. But we can also put that like on our lower abdomen to help ease cramps, or, I talk about it in terms of like helping to promote fertility because of that promoted blood flow to that region. So think about maybe incorporating castor oil packs. It's like a thick oil, kind of like a vitamin E, but you either soak a cloth in the oil, or I have like a special thing that I bought on Amazon, and I just kind of soak it with the oil and I put it on that place. Because I bought it on Amazon, it has like a belt that comes with it. So it's kind of up to you, like where you want to put it. You can either sleep with it on, which is what I do because that's easier, or keep it on for like 60 minutes, maybe even incorporating like a heating pad over it to help minimize or maximize its effects. And then we recommend that you do it like 2 to 3 times a week. I have also heard that there are special castor oil like Band-Aid looking things that you put right over your belly button. So that might also be a nice alternative for you to consider as you think about bringing castor oil into your self-care routine. Yoni steaming, this is more or less where you sit over a steam bath. It's a warm herbal steam bath that ultimately it's like I've only seen it almost like a box with a cutout on it, almost like a toilet looking thing that you sit on, and all of that steam just rises up and helps to tone your vaginal tissues and increase circulation, easing menstrual discomfort, but potentially also just helping with that tissue elasticity and flexibility. A little less like on maybe the physical side of being touched. We'll talk about sound healing. And so this is great really for hitting your body at the molecular level. It raises vibrations in your body, and it helps to calm your nervous system and reduce stress, just kind of align more positive energy. These are great, and I see them popping up all the time. They're like well worth it. Oftentimes you feel like you just sleep better. You leave in like a much calmer state, but also a little bit more energized. So different ways that you can kind of tune into that, whether it be tuning forks, singing bowls, which you'll potentially see someone with like a crystal bowl kind of doing this. Those are singing bowls. Tuning forks, they kind of hit the fork and maybe even put it somewhere on your body to kind of help with that energy. Restorative and yin yoga, these are two different things. Both of them more or less are holding postures for longer, but they're a little bit different in how they do that. There are quite a few great restorative and yin yoga classes around at least the like St. Charles, Geneva, Batavia area. So I would highly recommend that you look into attending one because they help to balance hormones and calm your nervous system, release tension, and again, just stretch different parts of your body or leverage the benefits of yoga poses to bring balance back to your bodily functions. Breath work and meditation, helping to lower our cortisol, stabilize our mood, maybe aromatherapy baths, or even like Epsom salt soaks. Again, I said magnesium is pretty much just, or an Epsom salt bath is pretty much you just like laying in magnesium, but that helps to calm your nerves, relax your muscles, potentially helps you sleep at night. Magnesium also can come in the form of like a body lotion or a spray. So I talked about like spraying the bottom of your feet or putting it at a very topical place where your muscle feels a little bit tighter or sore. Turning in or tuning into herbal teas or tonics, potentially looking for saunas, infrared preferably, to help support detoxification and again, that lymph movement. And then journaling, just kind of turning inward, bringing some emotional aspect to writing down how you feel or what you want to be. There's no wrong way to journal, and sometimes it's just nice to get your thoughts onto pen and paper, and it can help you process and release and just kind of work through things that are happening in your mind or your body. I personally love essential oils. I use them around my house, and we'll talk about like everyday toxins in just a minute. But I love using things like tea tree or lemon oil for cleaning. But then, as we think about maybe what we put on our bodies, there are some things that have really great benefits, especially around alleviating perimenopausal symptoms. So, essential oils, if like you've never really explored them, they are concentrated plant extracts extracted in different ways through steam or pressure. But these are like the structural materials and phytochemicals of plants that not only have great benefits to the plant, but also have really beneficial properties to people. So some of the top ones for perimenopause are clary sage because it helps to balance your estrogen levels or calm your nervous system. Lavender is great to soothe you. So a lot of times we think about that at night, but it's also anti-inflammatory, helps act as like a natural bug repellent. There's peppermint, which is cooling and invigorating. It also helps with nausea and circulation. Geranium is hormone balancing and mood uplifting. Chamomile is a sedative. No surprise there because chamomile tea is highly recommended like before bed. And then ylang ylang, and this supports emotional balance and potentially libido. So these are kind of the ones that I recommend, especially in perimenopause, whether you are massaging them on your body or you're adding them to like a face or a body lotion, just, as part of your regular get ready routine. Maybe they're in a roller ball, so it's like already diluted and you just put it on like the pressure points or where you would normally put perfume. All of these are great ways to get them onto your skin. There are some things that are considered hot oils, and so these are a little bit more like sensitive. So you may see that you have like raised bumps after you put it on without any dilution. So that's why we highly recommend that you mix it with a carrier oil. And it, has a good safe ratio of about 2 to 3 drops per every teaspoon of carrier oil, so that you eliminate some of those potential skin sensitivities. Aromatherapy, of course, diffusing it, either using like a diffuser or just putting it on a cotton ball and smelling it. There's also lava rocks that people wear on jewelry, like bracelets or necklaces, and that just kind of absorbs the oil, and you can just smell it at any point that you need the immediate relief. I also like to add it to warm baths or put it in my hands and just kind of do like manual diffusion, and like that act of warming it up kind of amplifies its smell. And then you just hold your hands as close to or as far away from your nose as it feels right for you. I also like to have cold washcloths. So I'll put washcloths in ice water and put like about 3 to 4 drops of one of these oils. And then either I put that in the fridge or the freezer, or I use it right away. And it's just really nice and soothing in the calming effects of the coldness, but then also having that like aromatherapy of the oil itself. Okay, now the last piece that I wanted to talk about was cleaning up. And so this is really about everything that we come into contact on a daily basis that could be aiding in our hormones disruption. And so if we think about what we're putting in our body, I would say shop organic whenever possible. I know that it is not financially feasible to buy everything organic. So that's why I'll talk about some of the dirty dozens. And those are the things that, like, if you buy nothing else organic, focus on the dirty dozens and your meat. But really, what we put in our body matters. I'm sure you know that, but the organic food, especially during menopause, is going to help to reduce that exposure to any hormone disrupting chemicals that either mimic or block the role of your naturally produced hormones. It just helps because there are higher levels of antioxidants, fewer levels of heavy metals, just providing better nutrient density. We've talked about the gut and it's important, the gut-mind, connection and how important that is, how important a healthy microbiome is. And so shopping organic helps to really grow the the good gut bacteria. Insecticides and things like that will actually kill good gut bacteria. And then just if you think about inflammation, we've talked about it a couple times and what it does to your joints, how it kind of adds itself to already existing brain fog or mood shifts. But eating more nutrient dense, less sprayed or chemically infused food actually helps to reduce some of the symptoms as well. So that's why I say, like, start with the dirty dozen. That's strawberries, spinach, kale, peaches, pears, nectarines, apples, grapes, bell and hot peppers, cherries, blueberries, and green beans. So these are the most pesticide contaminated foods, and they permeate the skin of these foods. And it's really hard, like, no amount of washing it can truly get rid of all the pesticides. So that's why we're saying, like, these are the 12. If nothing else, please buy these organic. There are also clean 15 foods, which I won't list out here, but maybe do a quick Google search. Those are the ones that are less or more resistant to pesticides and can be safely eaten conventionally. So something that you can consider. And then go organic with organic products where you can, whether that's like pasture-raised eggs, pasture-raised, meat, grass-fed dairy, fewer hormones in your animal products. It lends itself to healthier fat ratios, but it also is fewer hormones that you are ingesting through the food that you eat. And then just work locally for a more organic choices. They may be more affordable, whether they're through a farmer's market or something like a CSA. Buying in season is usually almost always more cost effective than buying out of season or something that isn't more local to your area. And then most stores have organic options. And so that might be like the preferred choice for you. And then the last piece that I'll say around like thinking clean or cleaning up is around what you're putting on your body. So we just talked about what you put in your bodies, but really what you put on matters just as much, especially during perimenopause when your body becomes so much more sensitive to hormonal disruption and inflammation. So you're going to have hormone vulnerability and potentially a slowdown of detoxification because the pathways are not as open. Potentially you have increase in immune and nervous system sensitivity. So where you really want to focus is in these top six. The different cleaning products that you use are, infused with chemicals. So maybe leveraging those essential oils to replace them. Or what you put on your skin. This Think Dirty app is something that I would recommend you get because you can scan the barcode of, any of these household goods, and it will tell you how dirty it is or how bad it is for your hormone health. It also gives you some alternatives or things that are good for your hormone health so that as you're at the store, you can understand, is what I'm buying good for me or is it a dirty product? We also, drink a lot out of plastic, so bringing in silicone, or like aluminum or glass where you can. Also thinking about what you cook with. So many of our pots and pans are Teflon coated, and that is a huge a huge hormone um, uh, Sorry, I don't know why I can't think today. Maybe it's because of some of these other things that are happening around the house. But it is a major contributor to hormone imbalance. So utilizing stainless steel where you can, or like a cast iron pan, all of that can really play into your hormonal health in terms of what you cook or how you cook it. And then, yeah, tune into some of these resources so that you can help to detoxify your environment. I know it is hard to just completely like wipe the slate clean and start all over again. So, like, as you run out of that lotion, try to replace it with something that's a little bit cleaner. Or, as the holidays come up, ask for a ceramic pan rather than a piece of clothing or something like that. Try to do it, in a manner that is right for you. And then choose fragrance free where you can. Drink filtered water, not out of plastic if you can. And then avoid heating food in plastic containers. So all of this kind of lends itself to improving your hormonal health, especially as it fluctuates, but understanding that there are so many implications to those fluctuations, being kind to yourself through this transition, plugging into a community, and finding what works for you. Hopefully, you have found a lot of great insights and takeaways this week that you can implement slowly to ultimately bring you to this area where you are thriving and you are blooming into the new person that you are meant to be. Again, all of these recordings will be on YouTube, so tune back into them as you need them or share them with your friends and family if you feel like that's the right next step. Plug into our series next week if you want to go a level deeper into specifics around beating the bloat and the weight gain. Improving or healing your thyroid and hormones that are produced there. Working with a therapist both on mental health for Stretch Thin and then pelvic floor for Real Talk. All of these bringing in amazing local experts that you can plug into and just start the conversation as necessary. We have that weekly class schedule that I'd love to, again, invite you to a class on me. Use the code RELAX, and hopefully we will see you in class. If you ever want to work one-on-one, I am here. Just because of time limitations, I can only take 3 individuals at a time. So if that is something that you want to talk about, happy to talk through that with you. And hopefully, we can get you in a timely manner so that you feel like all the basics that we've talked about can be put together in something that works specifically for you. All right, I'll leave you as we've started every time, but really just as a reminder, try something new based on what you've learned this week. Speak kindly to yourself, show yourself compassion because you are going through a lot. Prioritize rest and sleep where you can, move as much as you can during the day, lean into your community. If you don't have them, find them, and then come back to your why often, understanding why all of this matters and why you don't just kind of give in to what's happening during this time of your life. Thank you so, so much for joining me. Sorry, we were always like right up to the end, but I hope that you have had a great 5 days with me, and I hope to see you soon.